Hi everyone, I have with me here the Dark Exact Tarot today. The reason why I feel that I need to share this with you is because nobody's talking about it, on YouTube at least. I've seen one channel in French talking about this deck, that's about it. The other channel is like a tarot news kind of channel. I think talking to the creator. I'm not quite sure, but it's more about other stuff as well as the deck, but it's not focused on the deck, I felt. So this is the Dark Exact Tarot, copyrighted here as 2016, so it's not new. It's by Coleman, Stevenson, there it is. That's the cover card, and you can find this on Etsy. I stumbled across this as I was researching something, and I came across a blog which sort of lined up all these black and white decks that the blogger have come across that she or he rather like, and this was one of them. So this thing, this particular copy, I'm still coughing, I'm sorry. There is the washing machine is in the background as well, so I'm trying to have this mitigate that by this calming tune, or I hope you find this calming in the background, by Body Mind Zone, which link on YouTube I will put either below or up here somewhere. So excuse me. So this is the first edition that I've ordered with an extra pack called the Upgrade Pack, which consists of several major Arcana cards that's been revised. The other choice is for you to buy a second edition, which will automatically give you the newly revised Arcana, Major Arcana, and not the first edition Major Arcana. I wanted both versions because I wanted to decide for myself. Sometimes you like some of the new ones and some of the old ones, but that's additional cost. At an additional cost also, you can get this pouch, which I absolutely adore. The creator have sent me a lovely note here, handwritten, and with it you can see that in front of it was pinned this particular brooch, which is quite lovely. She also, when I contacted her, I was oh, I beg your pardon. I was still traveling, so she said, oh, you know, I know you were traveling and you should come back and needing cleansing. And so she added this lovely, so adorable cleansing kit, which I probably won't use because, you know, my understanding of cleansing is a little bit more abstract, but I really, truly appreciate the gesture. I mean, look at that. It's smoky quartz, I believe, amethyst and clear quartz, and you can pin this somewhere, and I think I will pin this here together with this lovely brooch. I think that might be quite interesting. Or maybe I'll pin it, I don't like it visually together. I think that goes really well together, but they just sort of throw it off aesthetically. So I'll pin this on my other on my other tarot pouch or deck pouch. And so yeah, so when this came extremely clumped up together, and it looks like a piece of brick, and I was having a lot of trouble separating the cards, and I've never had to deal with such a clumped up deck before in my life, so I didn't know what to do until finally I figured out what to do, which is to bend the whole deck like that, just a little bit, and then I could hear this cracking sound, like crack, and then after that it was still a struggle to peel the cards off, but with every peel I heard further cracking, and I noticed that all of the cards are left that looking like that. So it has this sort of almost like dried watermarks, or what do you call that? I don't know what you call that, but it's this mottled look. It's almost as if you know, it looks a little bit like fungus on paper. But they're actually peel marks, like an adhesive that's been sitting there for far too long. When you peel them, they leave a mark. So basically each of the faces of the cards are now like that as I peel each of the cards in front of it, which is a real pity. And I suspect if the back isn't as busy, you would be able to see the marking as well, but because the back is quite lovely, busy in a lovely way, it hides those markings. We all know that plain black shiny surfaces are the trickiest with cards, but it would have probably been a little bit like this at the beginning in its new condition. Look at this one here, smooth, sort of very high sheen. But having said that, this is the new cardstock and this is the old one, first edition, second edition. As you can see there, the first edition, although high sheen and black, the black here is a little bit more intense, a little bit more clean, a little bit more vivid. And I think it's because of the difference in lamination, perhaps. Perhaps this is just this lamination having aged, perhaps, but I suspect it's actually a rather slightly different cardstock, a slightly different batch of cardstock at the very least. It's just that sheen that you see there. This one a lot more vivid, give a lot more vivid black, and this one a lot more washed out. It's not just a camera effect, but it is actually like that in real life. And so before I continue further, I would like to preface this video by saying that other than the fact that no one's talking about this deck and I thought maybe it's good to chat about it, I'm also motivated by my recent experience in learning to transition to learning pips, namely the Marseille. If you know the March of the Pips tag that some of us participated in, and a lot of us have found it to be very useful, I was stuck with a poker deck, and that wasn't my plan during my travel. And that poker deck, which is the playing cards of our time, is actually a really good palette cleanser as far as reading is concerned, for me to then be able to see the minors differently, or in a certain way. It's not really see the minors differently, but reading the minors, the pips, in a certain flow, a kind of flow that I haven't really quite grasped before. And then after that, when I returned to the Marseille system, I found it a lot easier. While before, as I was trying to transition directly from Riddle-Waite-Smith to Marseille, it was a little tricky, even though during the course of my journey with the Riddle-Waite-Smith, I have come to see the pips in a slightly different way than how Waits have seen it, or seen it in the past, or how he has put the tarot forward, how we might attempt to transition ourselves from Riddle-Waite-Smith to reading pips or Marseille. In my case, and I am very aware that my case is very specifically mine, but for whatever it's worth, I thought I might share that with you in a separate video, but it would be very much related to this deck, so I wanted to do this for that reason as well. And so this deck have actually been, it has filled the role of transition deck that the Pagan Otherworlds have failed for me, because the Pagan Otherworlds have a lot of pips that is very Riddle-Waite-Smith but also very Marseille, so it threw me off. Here the pips are all clearly Riddle-Waite-Smith. So before we go into the binders, let's take a look at the majors. The majors here, that's the Fool for the first edition. The second edition gives you two Fools, one Alpha, one Omega. Sorry, that's not it. One Alpha, one Omega at the end. There it is. No, sorry, okay, there it is. There it is. So Alpha and Omega at the beginning and at the end. And this really resonates with me, especially after my contemplation for April of the world that is the end and also at the beginning. I would argue that 21, the world, is the Omega, and there is another world that is Alpha, which is that fetus depicted by the Acacia Tarot as the world, as a fetus. That is the Alpha aspect of the world, that in the traditional array of it is Omega, the end, the beginning and the end, Alpha, Omega. And so I incorporated both these two Fool with the traditional Fool, which is part of the first edition, and it does give me quite an interesting multi-layered reading of that beginning stage, that the archetype of the beginning of things, and I rather like that. And this one here is the Magician, the new version. The old version of the Magician looked like this. So all of the elements of the older version of the Magician's there, but there's this additional unity of all stages of a plant here, from the bulb all the way up to leafing, sprouting, and blooming. It sort of further emphasis that everything's already there, and it is just a matter of actualizing that potential, or perhaps it is an actualization process, or maybe it is potential actualized. Like the Margaret Peterson talk about the magician as magic, as self-actualization, as that process of self-actualization, or at that arrival of the self-actualized self. Either way, all the ingredients is already there. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then it's further emphasized by this depiction of this plant and all of its stages of development. So I really rather like that, so I picked the new one and I set aside the old one. And then we have this one, remains the same, the High Priestess, the lily. I've always associated the lily with Mother Mary and a few other saints, I think Saint Joseph as well. And it's with purity and wisdom, and with age-old wisdom, with that more feminine side of wisdom, with that more yin aspect of institutional knowledge and cultural wealth and established wisdom. And so I really, really like that. I'm not quite sure what the symbol means yet, but the majors here for me is highly, highly intuitive. This is the Empress. That reminds me of Demeter, of growth, of abundance, of food, of birth in life. And the stars is reminiscence of the 9 stars around the crown of the Empress, which is how Mother Mary is depicted, I think, in Revelation, sort of 9 stars around the crown of this divinity. So I really like that. Mother Mary, the actual Empress in the world. This is reminiscence of Demeter. Everything just evoked all that archetypes, all that symbolism, myth, images from the collective unconscious, and I really like that. The Emperor in charge. I almost want to say strength, because you know it. The dung, is this dung beetle? It carried a huge load, and that, I mean, look at that. That it's almost like strength. It's almost like, I mean, equally you can see lion as strength. You can see lion as the emperor, the king, and of the jungle. And so, in this case, it's very easy. As soon as you know this is the emperor, you can see that it is carrying that weight above its head that is a lot more than its actual body weight, and it is in charge. It is in charge. This Hierophant is the older version. So this is the only older version of the major arcana that I've picked for myself, because here it looks too much to me like pattern on wallpaper. I've almost missed the symbol. I am assuming that it's a symbol for something. Again, I do not know at this point yet. I will research it, but it's a bit harder to Google an image. You can Google a word or a term, but not an image. So I am yet to find that out at the moment. I'm still just working with the cards in terms of its pips and in terms of just the other imageries that really calls out to me. So if anyone know what that means, do let me know. But for me personally, that just stood out a bit more. It just, if that is a symbol of something, it just talks to me a bit more, because it's in its singularity, it's a lot clearer, while in the back like that it almost disappeared. So I've picked that. And then the Lovers, I picked the new version as well, because everything else is there. You can see this 2-1, but you put the moon and the sun together, and that is exactly what the Lovers is. It's unity or polarity for me, so definitely that. And then that's the Chariot. I wanted to say the Hierophant, so instinctively I wanted to say the Hierophant because of the key, but it's actually the Chariot. It's almost like balancing yourself, balancing your heart and your mind. And I don't know why I see the key and I see the mind. I'm not sure why, but you know, as I said, it's very intuitive. I'm trying not to explain things to myself too much, but at some point I would like to delve into that further. Here's Strength. This to me is very gentle. It has evoked this feeling of gentleness. This one's almost strength, you know, almost on a young masculine level. That's a strength and almost on a feminine level. This also reminds me of the silver fern, which is the national plant of New Zealand, and the black and white, of course, reminds me of the All Blacks. And a lot of our national sports team that perform in a very high caliber are usually, the uniform for our sports team are usually black and with white. And so all that evoked in me, and whether that's actually the intention of the creator or not, I don't think it is, to be frank, because I don't think she's a Kiwi. She's American. But that evoked that gentleness, that strength, yin and yang, and the lion, of course, in the traditional imagery of strength, all that really worked for me. The Hermit. This is, you know, something that goes underneath. This is underground, above ground, something that grow out of sight, but sometimes in the dark, solitary. It grow and grow into this something quite substantial, and the manifestation of which would sprout out into the open. But a lot of the work happens underground. A lot of the work happens out of sight, and that is a perfect Hermit for me. The Wheel of Fortune is a new, I picked for myself the new one, and this is the older version, looks like that. Again, it's to me it's just a lot more, this one's a little bit more rigid aesthetically speaking, but all of the elements are still there. You see all of the elements, even more in fact. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Is that Wheel of the Year? I'm not sure. But here, I am not familiar with Wheel of the Year or any of these symbols or astrological planetary charts and symbolism. To me, as long as the symbols are present here as well, it looks like it's there, and plus additional symbols, I thought, you know, and also aesthetically I prefer this, so I took that for myself. This is the new Justice. That is too, I'll get to the minor later, but that looks too much like Two of Swords. So I do prefer that because of the scale as well. And so I picked that one there. And then the Hangman. Death, perfect. It's a cycle of life. You can't have this. It's like for me it's the tail, the beginnings, the head and the tail. It just goes round and round and round. Whether that's the actual meaning of the Ouroboros, I don't know, but that's what I'm getting. Temperance. I can't articulate this verbally, but it feels like it works for me on some sense. That is human-made, that is nature-made. And temperance is sort of a combination of that to giving birth to something else. The leaf is the food factory for plants, and the flowers are the manifestation of that work of that food factory. Sometimes you could argue it's the fruit as well, but without the flower you can't get the fruit. And so a combination of everything resulting in something else, something new. I'm still working on how to articulate that, but on an intuitive level it seemed to have worked for me. I just don't know why yet. The Devil very much worked for me, and I think a lot of you will see the same thing as I do. You can't see the woods for the tree, right? And so that being blind, being ignorant, unawareness, ignorance and all that, just perfect. The Tower, this is the new design, and this is the older first edition design over here. So again, I prefer the new design because it's just a lot more vibrant somehow. And this time the symbols in the background doesn't recede in the background. It is in the background, but it's not receding in the background, so that I am still aware of the symbols for whatever reason, unlike the Hierophant, so that this and that, this is not less clear to me, having this multitude of the symbol in the background like that, like a wallpaper, like a pattern almost. So I picked that because it's just aesthetically more pleasing to me. The Star, Moon, the Sun, Judgment. Again, it's like that karmic line, Judgment. For me, Judgment is more awareness. So if there's one card that's probably not working as well for me, it might be this. But having said that, someone told me that your line, your palm line, change every 5 years, so that you have to look at it every 5 years. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But that's an interesting one that I still have yet to figure out, and it's perhaps one of the cards that I didn't quite get straight away. I suspect looking at the booklet won't help. Redemption, epiphany, understanding your place in the world, loss of perspective. So yeah, redemption, awareness, or sorry, awakening, new life, new being, new self. That's what Judgment is for me. So I don't know, we'll see. The world, all the elements are there in unison, and then of course the Fool at the end, which is the Omega aspect of the Fool, the end aspect of the Fool. I would argue that the world can be Omega as well, and there could be an alpha version of the world up here somewhere before this Fool starts. So that is my most favorite feature of this deck, is absolutely the Fool, where the Fool is split into Alpha and Omega, 0 and 22. It also covers that tradition where the Fool come at the end in some older European tradition. So that's the major. So the minor, you will see what I mean when I talk about transition deck and how this deck might be a good transition deck for some of us, in a way that the Pagan Otherworlds have failed to be for me personally. So that's the Ace of Fire, or of Wands, or of Baton, or of Staves or Clubs. 2, 3, 4. You see what I mean by very Rider-Waite-Smith. No mistake there. 5, 6. There is that echo of it. 7, 8. Very, very Rider-Waite-Smith. 9. All the elements. 9. 1, and then they're together there. 10. Finally, they're together. I mean, they're all fire. That's all the depiction of the element of fire, but you could see this as yin and yang together, and finally at the end, yin and yang together, feminine, masculine together at the end of the road. Very heavy burden, but it's at the end of the road. It's a conclusion. It's always good to conclude something. It's the door. It's that rounding off point at the end so that the new can begin again, but it can be hard. It can be heavy going. So you see what I mean? It's just without the imagery of Rider-Waite-Smith to dictate how you should interpret the card. Your intuition are really freed to take off with whatever knowledge you already have from the Rider-Waite-Smith into a more abstract, into a bigger picture page. And this is the other thing. This is the other thing I like about this deck, is the court. As you can see there, you have 1, 2, 3 fires, 4 fires. Is that sense of increasing intensity. Whatever you wanna, however you wanna see the quartz, it is an increase in intensity, and then it'll go back to 1. You can even do it like that. And so you are free to drop the labels, Page, Knight, Queen, or this any label that seems to be quite baggaged by societal hierarchy or gender binary. And you are free to just look at it as an increase in intensity, or an increase of or progression of some kind, or anything of the elements. 1, 2, 3, 4, done. It reminds me of stripes in the army. I don't know how to read those stripes, but you know, somehow this reminds me of that. So I really like that. You could just drop the label and just see it as a clean progression, as a clean movement and development of the elements. So I really do like that. And then we have the Ace, 2, balance, yin yang, 3, 4. Again with Marseille, the 4 would be that, you know, foundation, a square, that stable, but also stagnation, etc., etc., etc. Here you see this. You echo the Rider-Waite-Smith clearly, there's no doubt. So this really is, to me, a really good transition deck between Rider-Waite-Smith to a more pip reading style. If you're looking for one, I think Pagan Otherworlds serve as that too for a lot of people, but because by then I'm already rather familiar with the Marseille arrangement in some of the minors of Pagan Otherworlds really threw me off. But anyway, so this again, the 5, you see that echo of Rider-Waite-Smith as well, because most of the times the 5 in a more Marseille setup would be composed slightly differently. This is the 6, 3 yin, 3 yang, 3 dark, 3 light, 3 black, 3 white, and this is the earth symbol down there. Everything's in balance. You know, you have enough of it. You can afford to give people some. 7 with the 6, the stability of the 6, the outgrowth spurt, or the beginning of the growth of the next stage in the 7, the disruption of the stability and comfort of the 6, but it is a growth journey to the 8. This is the only one that I would argue is quite close to the Marseille, but you know, there's only so many ways to arrange 8 coins in a, you know, limited space, and so, you know, it doesn't really throw me off at all. The 9, 1 sprouting out of the stability of the 8, growing, not yet arriving at the 10, but in its journey to, and anything odd numbers are indicative of a disruption of some stability, but it is a movement that is neither bad or good. It's just a movement. It's not a stillness, it's not a stability, you know, it isn't good or bad. It's just out of your comfort zone, but in order to arrive to the next stability, that is the 10. And then you have the 10 all together and the symbol of the element, and then we start again with the page with the quartz. 1, 2, 3 cups. I like that it's almost fire element there. 2, 3, very Rider-Waite Smith 3 and 1 instead of 4 like that. 5, 3 and 2, again extremely explicitly, well, not explicitly, but very Rider-Waite Smith. 6, 7, 8. It's interesting that 1's sort of separating itself from the row. It's moving on, again very Rider-Waite Smith, because otherwise the 8 would have been lined up in perfect stable sort of formation, geometric formation, that is the, like that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Here 1 is sort of almost walking away from the formation, suggesting the Rider-Waite Smith of that person walking away from in the 8 of Cups. 9, 10, and then again we have the pages 1, 2, 3, the crown, alluding to the Rider-Waite Smith again, 2, and this is what I mean by it being too similar to the old Justice, which is why I like the revision better. There it is. So I think the revision is much better. No question, Rider-Waite Smith. 4, 3 and 1, Rider-Waite Smith. 5, 6, again, you know, in the Marseille, I believe it will be 3 and 3. It will be very symmetrical arrangement. Here it isn't, because it is alluding to Waite's take on it. Again, there is this sort of 1 that is moving against the flow there. 8, 9, again echoing that swords behind the person who is depicted in the 9 of Swords according to Waite. 10, and then we have that. So there it is. And so I really do like this deck very much for reasons I've shared there, and also the only thing I'm gutted about is, you know, that to me this deck is kind of ruined, and so, but because of that I am merciless, or I can feel like I can be merciless with shuffling it. There it is, the Dark Exact Tarot.